You're listening to 17 Carat K-Pop. For more information about the variety of topics covered on the show, as well as my other podcast, How to Stan, visit 17caratkpop.weebly.com. And if you enjoy this episode, please consider becoming a monthly donor to support my work and allow it to continue to go on and be free for all to access for as low as 99 cents a month. Visit the Support the Show link on my site's homepage for more information. Hello everybody and welcome back to 17 Carat K-Pop. I am so excited for today's episode because if you're a longtime listener, you know how much I just adore Taemin and his music and the music video universe he's creating, the stories he tells through his songs and performances. It's also captivating and intriguing, and this new comeback with the single and album Advice is no different. So without further ado, let's recap the key takeaways from certain music videos in his storyline. If you feel lost at any point during this overview, I would recommend checking out my other Taemin episodes of the show, Taemin period, Taemin with a period, and Taemin's latest act. But for now, I have some new theories I want to run with now, so my breakdown of his stories today might differ quite a bit from those other two Taemin dedicated episodes because I really feel confident in my theory now about what all of it means. The story begins in 2014 with the release of his mini album Ace and its single Danger. The details from this release are not significant until you have hindsight. So these details won't make sense now, but they will as I go through the storyline. A key outfit he wears during this promo in the promotional images for this release is a white turtleneck. Noteworthy from the Danger video is that he goes from spending time in a parking garage to entering this room full of microphones to riding off on a motorcycle. Skipping forward in the timeline to Press Your Number, in the performance video for that song, he changed to a black turtleneck. It starts with the aftermath of a car crash, then it goes backwards, so the scene plays out in reverse, and you see the events that led up to that crash, and then kind of an epilogue. So it starts with the ending, then you have the plot, and then you have an epilogue that would have been there regardless of parts A and B. He tries to rob this convenience store, and then flees when the cops are called, alongside his co-conspirators, but no matter who turned on who first, they are clearly no longer on each other's side, because he tries to let them take the fall for him. Meanwhile, when he thinks he's escaped everyone with a suitcase full of money, he realizes that his original partners in crime actually filled up the suitcase with flowers, and presumably took the money for themselves. Not only have his former co-conspirators turned against him, but he has turned against himself, because clearly his alter ego is on full display in this video. The proverbial devil on his shoulder has taken on a life of its own, and there are all these split-second moments that you can read into where he's both the victim and the perpetrator, where suddenly it looks like he's the cashier being robbed, and the robber, where it looks like he's the one who's tied up under the piano, and when it looks like he's the one who did the tying up. He is the getaway car driver and the passenger. But rather than muster up the courage to just confess and try to learn something from this, he just ends up trying to run even more, run and hide from his past. That's when the car crash happens. Unclear how much of that crash was intentional or not, but after the crash, he sets the crashed car on fire, douses it in gasoline. He's just destroying both the car and the evidence of the robbery in it, which was that suitcase full of flowers, which he thought was the suitcase full of money, but regardless, it's incriminating, and so he destroys it. Next, let's talk about the most visually and sonically stunning song in Taemin's discography, which is saying a lot. Not just of Taemin's, not just Korean music, all music, one of my favorites. It's called Goodbye or Solitary Goodbye, and in this video, he is in the middle of two different realms. And he's using his superpowers to control the elements. So you see flowers sprout up after he dances. He also controls the water and fire. He controls the elements. earth, wind, water, and fire powers. Other details from this video to note for later include the fact that he lies on this bright red piano. The scene opens up where you see clouds forming the shape of dark wings, and then you see him lying on top of that piano. Then the scene progresses where you see the full moon behind him, and at one point he's sitting in a coffin that is full of blue flowers, just like the ones from Press Your Number. Following this video where he's in a coffin is the Flame of Love video where we see his ghost. In the Flame of Love video, he starts out reminiscing about this romantic night out with a girl by this car. The girl is seen levitating at one point. Eventually, though, that memory of her levitating is destroyed by Taemin's fire powers. Then he assesses the damage that has been done to the car, where at first it looked in mint condition, but now it's wrecked. The other key detail is just that he wears white at the end of the video. You may be thinking, isn't it a bit early in the story for the main character to die off? Yes, it is. And he didn't really. Because first of all, as the Press Your Number video indicated, just because his videos are released in a certain order does not mean the events happened in that same order. The chronology of it all should not be assumed. Second of all, I think that was more of a symbolic death than anything of who he used to be, and now good Taemin and evil Taemin are completely split. So they've diverged after this rebirth of his, and now good Taemin and evil Taemin inhabit entirely separate bodies. So now we see Taemin with a white shirt walking across this bridge. The Taemin with a black shirt is walking down a city street outside this brick wall. And those, I think, are different Taemins now. They've diverged into this new phase of his story. And then one of them is seen wearing a mask, sitting on a throne. Everyone's kind of glitching in and out around him. So I think what happened was, when he split into two different people and not just the proverbial angel and devil on one guy's shoulders, but now two different guys, they went their separate ways, that angel and devil, the superpowers went with one of them. So I think this story will just continue to focus on evil Taemin because the superpowers were shared between those sides of his personality and everything, so he could do good at times and do evil at others. Now all those superpowers, those superhuman abilities, have stuck with the evil Taemin only, and so the other one appears weak and hidden by comparison. Next is the video for Thirsty, which is an interesting full semi-circle moment, where he's back in the parking garage from the Danger video. The Danger video, only now, instead of wearing white, he's wearing red. I would also just note that each flash of light in that video shows a mirrored version of himself. There's also that duality emphasized in Day and Night, a video where he's wearing a similar outfit to Press Your Number, the video where a lot of this plot got started. The Under My Skin video is one where both Taemins look dejected, only kind of half-heartedly using their powers. That is the one that has powers, but either way, they're really just sort of wandering, contemplating, listlessly. One Taemin, who I think is the evil Taemin, is walking around wearing all black, and at one point he sits on top of the piano. Meanwhile, the good Taemin wears red and is just wandering around this grassy field with mirrors lying everywhere. One of those mirrors that is a full-length mirror that shatters. He continues to stare into it. So a lot of deep reflection. Main thing to remember is just that one Taemin is wearing all black, and by the piano, the other is looking at himself in the mirror wearing all red. I think what happens in the Want video is a lot more than what meets the eye for the storyline's sake. Because Taemin's in this all black outfit in some scenes, and a red outfit in others. But this time, the red outfitted Taemin is not the good Taemin, the innocent one. This one has a literal snake wrapped around him. So in the story so far, we've watched Taemin grapple with and kind of lose this battle with the proverbial devil within him. Then he ended up in the crash, dying, his spirit left him, and then his identities were split into two different bodies. And at this point in the story, it feels like this night of a full moon in the video is indicative of a big transformation, where now both the evil and good Taemins are merged once again. And there are a lot of reasons I think that, because of details that are easy to miss the first time you watch the video. Now, you cannot just assume that if you see the red outfit, it's the good Taemin, because the symbol of sin, the snake, got him too. Taemin's in the forest dancing, and at some point you see the girl dancing there too, reminding you of the Flame of Love video memories. The full moon itself is of course symbolic too, and there's a scene where a bunch of cords that look like mic cords fall to the floor and suddenly resemble snakes, which is really key to pause and think about. Remember, in Danger, the action really kicked off after he passed through a room full of microphones, and now the mic cords are back. The full moon is back, the girl is back. It feels like a big pivotal moment where there's a huge metamorphosis he's undergoing, and these vices that come to him now make sense given that the song is called Want. The video for Famous really drives home the message that he is the prisoner of his own prison creating. He is the source of his own undoing. At this point, his hands are literally tied, and he's surrounded by half-eaten apples, which is a symbol of temptation. So clearly he gave in to some evil instinct and now holds himself captive. You can also see that in the fact that one Taemin is seen framed in a wall as if stuck in a picture frame. I think his character learns, or at least has the opportunity to learn, a lot in the video for Famous. He stares at a cracked mirror like he did previously. He has all these flashbacks to the robbery night and the car crash night. All these memories, all these times he's reliving that significant plot point. Then he's seen sitting on the hood of a car that's surrounded by crash dummies. And at one point the crash dummies are all set on fire. So I think that is a really key symbolic moment, showing that he's coming to terms with how this is not a drill. No matter how much he runs, he can't hide from living the rest of his life with the consequences of his actions. And I think he's realizing, or at least has this giant opportunity to realize right now, that instead of trying to outsmart this evil within him, he should have realized that's a lost cause and spent this time instead trying to eradicate that evil, or at least balance out its influence on his actions with the goodness. But instead he kept trying to outwit it and thinking he could brush off and ignore its commands, and now he's in too deep. Next video is Two Kids, which we're going to talk more about later, but I'll just note for now that he is wistfully thinking about a lost relationship he wish he could salvage but knows he can't, wandering city streets, and then at some point, he's levitating above his memories at some point. I'm torn between two interpretations of the video for Criminal. I do think it could be just chronologically not in the right order, and that this actually is good and evil Taemin embodying different bodies. But I also think it's possible that his character here is just the same person, and it's kind of all in his head, him being the culprit and the victim of his own pain. He has his hands tied again, literally, and is trapped in this glass box of sorts that's a little like a gift shop. It's full of clutter. Snakes are slithering on the ground. So while he's struggling with the rope ties and stuff, and he has cuts on his face and everything, he also holds different weapons and clearly holds the power against himself here. The only other detail I will note from this video is that he has playing cards at one point. A major overlooked detail is that Taemin ends Never Gonna Dance Again Act 1 with Identity, the song where he sings From Base to Ace. Remember, Ace is the name of his first album in this story. And it's no coincidence that that lyric is both concluding Never Gonna Dance Again Act 1 and kind of a prelude to Act 2, which is all about ideas, as the song Idea, his following title track, suggests. He's literally saying he finally opened his eyes. The lyrics are about coming to terms with a big eureka moment of sorts. The promo pictures were also revealing of the storyline having this big moment, because he's back in the white turtleneck from the start of this whole saga, and he's trapped in a glass box again. The dual Taemins are still a part of the story. We do see that flashbacks do persist, and we do see multiple Taemins, but the story has moved into a level where he can start to learn everything I mentioned before that he should have been working on all along, taming and handling this alter ego as opposed to trying to just ignore it or brush it aside. The color scheme remains symbolic for him. The key symbolic colors up until this point have mostly been black, white, and red outfits. So indicating the dawn of a new era here is his blue outfit. Also worth noting are the lyrics, because in this song Idea from the album Never Gonna Dance Again Act 2, he says, "The dangerous dream that swallowed me, your shadow that you found, everything you can't see." deepening shadows, you're growing on instinct, deep dreams, killing me softly. The night I cut you out of me, I finally opened my eyes. Taemin said this Never Gonna Dance Again era was inspired by Plato's theory of ideas, which I broke down in a different Taemin dedicated episode called Taemin's Latest Act. But just a quick refresher, Plato's theory of ideas is basically a fancy way of saying that humans put too much of their focus on understanding the material world as opposed to the world of ideas, which he views as a separate concept. His views have their caveats and shortcomings, but at the end of the day, what he's saying boils down to the fact that many ills persist in society because people just jump to the material world to fix things. So he argues for looking at the consistent foundation for those ideas if you really want those ideas to have a positive impact. We have to actualize the ideas and understand how we do that at the core before we look at surface level concepts. Sometimes I have a hard time squaring Plato's view that humans are just the agents of ideas, that they just act on the definitions of existing concepts, while he's also saying that humans are the ones who actually defined those concepts in the first place. So I have a hard time sometimes figuring out how he squares those things. But ultimately, what his ideas can prompt you to think about is how much power we have to shape what happens. The world and its concepts are more fragile and transitory in their definitions than you thought. Basically, Taemin and any artist's work that deals with the alter ego's concept is dealing with that weird, complex relationship that both separates and connects the human world with what he calls the world of ideas. And he argues, with a shadow as a prime example, that concepts in the world of ideas, when turned into our world, end up being distorted. Because, for example, with a shadow doesn't really exist. It's not really a thing, it's a reflection of a different thing. It's a reflection of sunlight. But on Earth, we don't see it that way. We see it as its own defined thing. All to say that activating the meaning of things in the world of ideas is bound to distort those ideas. And we have the power, as we socially construct narratives and worlds, really, to change those ideas as we see fit, for better or for worse. And all too often people tailor those ideas for worse. Ultimately, I view this story as a psychological and philosophical exploration one individual goes on while he tries to figure out what reality really looks like and what is just this illusion, how he can relearn different things by distinguishing in his mind between his physical material reality and this separate realm of ideas that he was misconstruing, and how to come to terms with what kind of world he wants to live in and what kind of person he wants to become. He sings about a dangerous dream that swallowed me, your shadow that you finally found, small projections made by reason, perception is beyond the limits, the night that cut you out of me, I finally opened my eyes. So many lyrics that harken back to Plato's theory of ideas and the types of questions it raises. So now we've reached the new song Advice in this timeline, which had promo pictures featuring him on a giant chessboard. And I bring that up because remember when I said to note the fact that there were playing cards as a key symbol in the criminal video? He's back to talking about pawns in a game he's controlling. But anyway, besides that, this video is quite a moment where Evil Taemin, if you had any doubts that Evil Taemin is in control now, this puts those doubts to rest. Because in this video, he speeds off in a car that gets in that crash without caring. The color scheme is once again noteworthy. He wears black and white, and the backup dancers in this video are now the ones who wear red. Remember, that's the color for the good Taemin. The good Taemin had control over some fire and water at first, but now it's like it all literally froze over, and he's in this frozen environment, presumably of his own making. In this video, he is wearing a mask as he plays piano. An interesting departure because he's still wearing a mask like he did in previous videos, but in previous videos, he was seen just walking past or lying on the piano. Now he's, for the first time, really playing it. So he starts playing the piano, and you can actually see he still has soot covering the blood on his hands as he plays. Literally, he still has the blood on his hands from the car wreck, if not even more crimes committed along the way. So, to recap, the details that keep showing up throughout this saga include the wrecked car, and kind of before and after images, flashbacks to that night, being trapped like in a glass box or having your hands tied up, microphones, the piano, the full moon unleashing his ability to control the elements, references to mirrors and multiple selves, levitating. Remember, the girl is levitating in Flame of Love. He levitates himself into kids, and then in Advice, he is once again the one levitating, as if suspended in time. To me, the car crash flashbacks and moments suspended in the air levitating are symbolic of moments where he is at a crossroads and can decide what is he going to learn from the world of ideas. What will he interpret as good or evil that will make the foundation of his future? Then there's more obvious symbolism like getting tied up or being trapped in a box, feeling trapped. And then I think the microphones and piano are symbolic of his realization, especially when he starts to finally play this piano, of his ability to express himself. Once he understands the concept of that theory of ideas, those outlets to express himself were always there. After all, those microphones were in the Danger video in 2014, back when this whole saga started. But now he's ready to take them and express himself however he wants, or just relish the feeling that he has this amplified voice and influence. So the story started with Ace. Then we had those pivotal moments where he had the robbery, got in a car wreck with the getaway car, and destroyed the evidence of that night. He could have chose redemption in that moment, but he didn't. And so now, after he unleashes his powers, next thing we know, we see him in a coffin. It's the death of the old him. Then the spirits proceed to leave him as he reflects on the past relationship. Then we have two Taemins, and this is a key moment where he goes from wearing mostly white outfits to mostly black outfits after this. In this transition period, for a few videos, he wears all red, and he is back in the parking garage setting, like at the start of this whole story. So this is a key moment to bookmark and transitory moment in the story. The next block of the stories features two separate Taemins who go their separate ways. Meanwhile, one still gets tied up and surrounded by the crash dummies. The evil Taemin, who still has the superpowers, is still surrounded by regrets and a past he can't escape from. Then we have the criminal video where he continues to be his own worst enemy. A moment of clarity strikes, as literal lightning strikes, in the video for Idea. Lastly, in Advice, there's the clearest break yet between good and evil Taemin. Evil Taemin, symbolically and literally, is in the driver's seat. He's willingly going on a high-speed ride until the car crashes with no regrets. He hasn't learned a thing. He's finally playing that piano he used to just soberly wander by. He feels extra in control and emboldened right now. And he's back to controlling the elements, freezing over his environment. Now he wears black and white, and sometimes both, but not red. That is passed on to his backup dancers. The color representing good Taemin, he is not associating with. He sings about how it's creepy, the drama you wanted. The more you try to trap me, I'll go off the rails. He seems to be taunting, come and get me, to good Taemin, yet also criticizing evil Taemin for this drama he wants to start. He's clearly dealing with some sort of inner demon. Because of the increased cockiness and increased dissociation with good Taemin that we see in the video for Advice, as well as the fact that he's singing about, I must take my own advice, but clearly he's either not listening or he's taking the bad advice from evil Taemin. That this story seems to be reaching a climax, meaning there's still a long way to go and many chapters left. So I really do think it's not a cop-out answer. My theory is really that this story is in some ways just getting started, and now there needs to be a whole falling action after this climax of good Taemin reclaiming control. One more lyric from this song that I want to talk about. Even the veil that hides the smile inside the glass mask is lost. To me, referring to some kind of Joker-esque smile, even what is hiding it feels lost. Whatever he's seeking, he's not finding it. And he also references the mask he was wearing before, and presumably the glass box he was stuck in the same line. If I had to summarize Taemin's story in just a sentence or two, I would say that it's about this evil that has not just been reborn, but come back stronger than ever, thanks to a continually suppressed proverbial angel voice. As that voice has grown quieter and quieter and felt more and more suppressed, this evil in him is taking on a new life of its own, committing a crime spree that is not stopping anytime soon, even when it felt like there could be a breaking point and a moment of clarity and asking for forgiveness. That moment was just a moment, not enough yet to make a long-term change. And I think from a philosophical standpoint, one of the reasons why evil Taemin feels so guilt-free is because he is a manifestation and a product of the world of ideas. Personification of an abstract concept, which is immorality, that came from the world of ideas, separate from the world of reality, which means that he feels invincible, like the rules do not apply to him in the physical world because he's not from here. He's just doesn't really exist, and so he doesn't feel like he would have a consequence put on him. So I think the antidote here will require him getting back in touch with and embracing, as opposed to pushing away, his humanity. Signs of feelings, emotions, memories, learning to enjoy his time on Earth and accept his story so far, reclaim it as his own, as opposed to trying to completely redo his image in this evil light. He needs to find validation elsewhere on Earth, and I think his character struggles so much with that because of a sorrow over the loss of that loved one, but that girl is stuck in the past life. She's not coming back. I want to share some of the key lyrics from B-sides on this album as well. Not even for my theory's sake, this is a little less relevant. I just think these songs are really beautifully written with thought-provoking lyrics. In Light, he says things like, "In the endless darkness, the road was spreading in front of me. You become my daytime. The colors of my emotions keep overlapping over and over again. The more transparent they get, I regain my color." It's such an interesting metaphorical way to think about light, that the more is reflected on you, actually the less transparent you get because you regain more and more of your signature color, who you really are. It's also interesting how he talks about light, seeing light everywhere. But interestingly, later on he says even the darkness sparkles. So he replaced the word tears with darkness. If I Could Tell You is Taemin and Taeyeon from Girls' Generation. And they sing about a relationship in a really interesting way, worrying about opening up to someone, not worrying about opening up to someone for the reasons that are more often sang about, like fearing stigmatization or judgment or whatever, but just fearing opening up because by telling your partner anything new about you, by opening up more to them, even just a little bit, that disclosure will tear at a perfect relationship. And that may snowball into upending the entire dynamic of the relationship long term. So it's not a fear out of worrying about being accepted. It's a fear that comes from change in a seemingly perfect as it is relationship. The last song I would like to draw your attention to is Sad Kids, the final song on this album, and a partner song to Two Kids, the final song on Never Gonna Dance Again Act 1. There are so many interesting lyric parallels here. On Sad Kids, he sings, "The wound is smudging, just sad kids getting lost. Is it healed?" In Two Kids, he sings, "All the scars and traces you left." On Sad Kids, he repeatedly says, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." On Two Kids, he says, basically, sorry's not good enough. On Sad Kids, he sings, "Shouldn't be caught, it's the kind of thing I've been covering up." On Two Kids, he sings, "When looking back it was nothing." On Sad Kids, he sings, "I can't move." On Two Kids, he sings, "Wishing you would hug me, but I pushed you." On Sad Kids, he sings, "All the names engraved on you." On Two Kids, he sings, "I deeply carved the reasons for the breakup." On Sad Kids, "My pattern is like a broken clock, now you're late." And on Two Kids, he sings, "We will have to live through time and be forgotten." So dealing with the concept of a relationship fading, all sorts of wound metaphors, in a back and forth, another really wonderful, impressive, unpredictable, varied, cinematic comeback from Taemin. Wonderful job. Experimental while still showing off his signature vocals, but also taking his vocals in new directions than ever before. Just another really fresh release from him. And, of course, a really fun release to theorize over, as I did at length today. So make sure you go check out the new album, Advice. Thank you, Taemin, for your beautiful discography. Thank you all for listening to my show today, and I will talk to you all again very soon.